a dramatic start to his term in office then. Can you give us a bit more in the way of background around what's going on in Guatemala?
This is a second attempt, if you like, at a democratic spring. I mean, he's the son of Guatemala's first democratically elected president, Juan José Arevalo, who was elected in 1944. He was succeeded by an even more left-wing president, Nacaco Boad-Benz, who was overthrown by the military in 1955. And since then, Guatemala's had a succession of military regimes, a terrible guerrilla campaign and counterinsurgency, brutal counterinsurgency campaign in which a couple of 100,000 people died, mainly indigenous Mayas. The population of Guatemala is almost divided between mixed race and indigenous people. And since 1985, Guatemala has had elections, but no stable governments, no stable parties, very weak institutions. And Arevalo was a real surprise when he won the election last year, because he's a complete outsider. He's a sociologist, a former diplomat, he's 65 years old, and he's promising to crack down on the corruption and institutional biases that have kept a small elite in dominant position in Guatemala for many, many years. And he's going to have a very uphill struggle, as yesterday's chaos demonstrated. His opponents are not going to give way easily.
I mean, you say tackling corruption and strengthening institutions there. What other priorities does Arevalo have in terms of, what people voted him in on?
Well, anti-corruption is his big pitch, which is a very, very big ask in Guatemala. There was quite an important campaign a few years ago in Guatemala to stamp out institutional corruption, which involves all the main institutions of the state and the military. A UN-backed agency helped to strengthen the investigative powers of the judiciary in Guatemala, and that made some impressive gains. But they were forced out. The mission was forced out by another succeeding government, and the whole process has gone into reverse. There are some very, very courageous prosecutors and judges in Guatemala. A number of them have been forced into exile, have been arrested. But his main intention now is to try and strengthen the hand of the judicial and administrative institutions in Guatemala to try and dig out the entrenched networks and web of corruption, which has kept the country back. And by doing that, I hope to pave the way for more economic growth and more redistribution of wealth. Guatemala is a notoriously unequal country, with the majority of the population living in abject poverty.
And given the opposition in Congress, given how entrenched this corruption is, how likely do you think it is that he will be able to be successful in these aims?
It's going to be very difficult. He's got a very small number of deputies in Congress. He's by no means anywhere near a majority. He'll have to compromise on just about everything. And as we saw yesterday, his opponents in Congress are determined to make things as difficult as they possibly can for him. So if he can just consolidate his position in the country, that will be a major achievement, and to avoid being forced out. It's going to be very, very difficult for him, but he's quite a resilient character, and he comes from a background of determined politicians. So there's a good chance that he won't give way easily, but he's going to have his hands full.
Certainly lots of changes going on in Central and South America. Colin Harding from Manchester, thank you.